Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the same old Arsenal podcast. Hope you're all doing very, very well. You certainly should be because we are back. Arsenal are back in the Champions League. And as ever, I'm joined by the wonderful JJ to preview our first Champions League fixture in over 6 years. Tell you what, mate, I'm a little bit excited for this one.
Yeah. So am I. I think I saw something earlier today. I can't remember who tweeted it, so apologies, I can't credit them. But they were saying that the last game in the Champions League, I believe it was just a mere 3 or so weeks after Arteta retired as a player, and then it was Unai Emery as the opposition manager to Arsene Wenger for us. I'm like, oh my god. I mean,
God almighty.
yeah, I'm like, but I'm like, all that's happened in 6 years. I mean, yes, it was my birthday yesterday, wasn't it? And I'm like, oh my, I feel so. I'm like, those 6 years have gone. I mean, to be fair, 2020 felt like 10 years in 1 year, didn't it? Just for the sheer boredom of just sitting there, not being able to do anything. But I'm like, oh my god, I'm like, those 6 years feel like forever ago to me.
And whilst it's on the top of my mind, happy belated birthday, mate. How'd you spend your special day?
I was just with the family, mate. Very, very simplistic. The drinking session will be on the Saturday, which could be dangerous because I need to be up for the derby on Sunday. So
Big night in Chelmsford?
it is. It is. I'll probably see. I can't remember his name, but
He'll
see me. I won't see him.
If you're pre-drinking in the local Tesco, I'm sure he will find you. But yeah, happy belated birthday, mate. Hope you had a cracker and hope you had a blinder at the weekend as well.
Thank you.
Now, before we get into the PSV game, I'm going to mention this early doors because I'm conscious if I leave it to the end, a lot of people will have tuned out and they're going to miss out on this fantastic opportunity that we've got here on the Same Old Arsenal YouTube channel and the platform in general. Isn't exclusive to YouTube, whether it's on Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon Music, if that's a thing, wherever it may be. We have teamed up with the wonderful Ruth Beckart, and a couple of times a month, she has very, very kindly donated a couple of pieces of her artwork to give away on the channel. And like I say, I'm mentioning this at the start so everyone has the opportunity to enter. All you have to do to enter to win this wonderful piece that I'm showing on the screen now, I believe it comes framed as well. All you've got to do to enter and win that is email the same old Arsenal at gmail.com with the subject header giveaway in block capitals. And then if you could put your Twitter handle in there as well, then we can announce the winner. We're going to be closing it about midday on Friday, so please do get involved.
Is it that easy, James? Is that easy?
It is that easy, yeah. We did think we did and ah about answering a question.
No excuse not to email in, folks.
Exactly. There are no excuses. In fact, I'll be expecting an email from you, mate. It could be a nice.
I don't know. I don't know if I'll be allowed.
I think
it could be classed as conspiracy.
Well, yeah, that's a fair point. But look. Here it is, just to my right or left, depending on how you're viewing it. It's a lovely piece. Make sure you enter. Ruth's work is absolutely phenomenal.
World class.
Yeah, for the foreseeable future, we're giving away 2 pieces a month. So for, the sake of 1-2 minutes to send an email, do it. It's a no-brainer. Yeah. And we will get the winner announced on Friday. But that's enough of that because we've got a big one coming up tomorrow. Mate, I don't know where to start, really. I mean, the buzz for the Champions League, I'm sure we've all had the Champions League music playing over the past couple of days. I think, when I'm at the ground tomorrow and you've got the music ringing around the Emirates Stadium, I think a lot of us are going to be having goosebumps. But I think...
you see Jesus' comments?
Yes, yeah, I did.
They've been playing it in the gym. I'm like, this is
fantastic. I love that.
No, get them pumped up. Get them pumped up.
And I don't know if you've seen that video of Smith Rowe passing the ball to Declan Rice.
Yeah.
It just takes a minute to look at the ball.
It's brilliant.
Yeah, this is fantastic. You got to remember, so many of these players are experiencing it for the first time. Declan Rice hasn't played in the Champions League. Bukayo Saka hasn't played in the Champions League. Martinelli hasn't played in the Champions League. Unfortunately, he's not going to play tomorrow night. But a load of these players, it's their first time, which I think makes this so much more exciting for them, for us, because we just don't know quite what we're going to get. And there's that sense of anticipation around it. We're all in this together. We're all starting a new journey. JJ, for you, how important is it that Arsenal Football Club is back in the Champions League?
Oh, it's humongous. I mean, you've just mentioned it there, James. Declan Rice. You do not get £105 million outlay on a player unless you have Champions League football. Now, do I believe Arsenal could do it without Champions League football? Yes, I do, but they probably wouldn't have wanted to. Plus, with FFP and everything else, you're going to need that Champions League money to sort of balance it all out. So, yeah, the Champions League football is absolutely pivotal. And I mean, James, as far as our European standing as a club is, I don't diminish the Cup Winners' Cups. I mean, they were sort of before my supporting time. Obviously, it was 94. I started really going in 96. So it skipped me by about 2 years. And I know how important they were to fans that did see them. But other than that, our European pedigree is absolutely terrible compared to the rest. And I think we really need to rectify that. I want to go as far as possibly we can in this competition, James. I don't just want to be in it just to, get a lot of banter towards them noisy neighbours that don't have any European football at all. But I don't want to be in it and then just be without it or in the Europa or the conference in the next couple of weeks' time. So, yeah, I hope, when that group come out, yes, it's favourable in terms of a Champions League group. However, I don't think anyone in this group's a gimme, James. I don't think PSV tomorrow is a gimme game. And I hope we're all ready and just, up for it. But still, don't let the occasion take away from the job at hand. It's one of them, just keep your focus, keep your head in the game, and let's get the job done. Because we're more than capable of beating PSV. We've done it already. So, we've done them we beat them in the Europa League. Or did we draw with them first and then they beat us, didn't they, away or something?
Yeah, I think that it was the game away. I'm not sure if the stakes were quite as high as they were in the first game. But I remember that the away game, I'm pretty sure we lost it or we didn't get a good result. I remember that.
Yeah.
But I mean, we're coming up against the PSV side that arguably aren't as strong as they were the last time we played them. Obviously, they've lost Madueke, they've lost Cody Gakpo. Seems to be the way with clubs in the Eredivisie. We've done it ourselves by poaching Jurien Timber from Ajax. They do seem to be players that move on from that league. That said, they've had an impeccable start to the season over there in Holland. They're tearing teams apart, and you've only got to look at how they swept aside Rangers in qualification. I mean, they beat them 5-1 at home. So, okay, it's a home game. It's a game that on paper we should win. Like you say, I don't think it's going to be quite as black and white as that. I don't think this is going to be a 4-5-0 hammering. I think this could be a cagey 1-2-0 win, or it could even be a draw. I really hope that's not the case. But this is a tough game. I know obviously we're not avid watchers of the Eredivisie, but what have you made of PSV so far this season?
Yeah, well, they've had to qualify to be in here, so they've already played, like 4 European games, which I think helps them in terms of the squad that they've got, like bed in and get used to European kind of opposition and football. And yeah, like you said, they swept Rangers, and then I think it was Sturm Graz as well in the first qualifying round. They beat them 7-2 on aggregate. And like you said, I think their last, is it 3 or 4 games, they've won them all 4-0. So their score, Arsenal at the moment aren't as free flowing and free scoring as we were this time last season. We're still in. What I will say is I think we're so much better in terms of controlling games, James, and I attribute that to the new signing that's come in, and then obviously reverting back to the system that we all want. Key players coming back from injuries, but these guys are no slouches, and they are absolutely pumping sides. And like I said before, I don't think that they're going to be phased about facing us at all. They're going to be up for it. The fans are going to be up for it. So we just need to get on and do what we do. And yeah, you're right. They don't have Gakpo and Madueke, and they don't have Xavi Simons as well, who absolutely tore us apart in that game at their ground. He was fantastic. I wanted him in the summer. I thought that he was so good off that performance that I was like, I wouldn't mind seeing him in an Arsenal shirt.
Yeah, I'm fairly confident that we'll see a few players that we probably haven't heard of tomorrow night, and we'll be like, oh, he's a player. So that's what I'm expecting from PSV. They've just got this way. I mean, all the teams in the Eredivisie seem to do it. They just find these players and then they play against us and they look fantastic. So, yeah, it's going to be a tough game. Certainly expecting it to be difficult. And I think there's an expectation that we are going to rotate in this game, but obviously we can't and shouldn't do it to the extent that we did in the Europa League. Arguably in the Europa League, particularly last season, I don't think we rotated drastically. I think we rotated more heavily than you would in a Champions League game, but we still didn't rotate to the absolute extremes of playing another 11, which, isn't even a possibility for us at the minute. We haven't got the required players.
No.
Not that I would want us to do that anyway, but I think there's going to be a lot of discussion throughout this podcast of who's going to play where. But I want to start with the goalkeeper, because obviously David Raya came in at the weekend, kept a clean sheet against Everton, had zilch to do, but confidence boosting performance is probably the ideal game for him to have started and for him to have got a win in. A lot of people are saying that whoever starts this game on Wednesday and whoever starts the North London derby, they're going to be the first choice. So let's say Ramsdale starts tomorrow night, he's going to be the Champions League keeper. And let's say Raya starts on Sunday, he's going to be the league keeper. I don't think it's as clear as you've got your Champions League keeper and you've got your league keeper. I don't think it's as plain sailing as that. I think, it is going to be a case of when we've got congestions of fixtures like this, you're going to see one play 2 games, one play 1 game, one play 2 games. It's going to mix and match. I think, they'll share the games in all competitions, to be quite honest. What did you make of Raya coming in the weekend, and who do you think is going to start tomorrow night?
I was very impressed with Raya at the weekend. I think that, Arteta alluded to it, that he's now got keepers that he can use for specific games and situations. And he's looking at it. Everton were a big side that you knew were going to play for the set pieces or the crosses and everything. And I do think David Raya, not just statistically, but with my own eyes, James, watching him for the last couple of years that Brentford have been in the league, he is much better at claiming crosses or those high, they class him as those high claims. I think he is better than Aaron Ramsdale for that. And the one thing I did like as well is, and it's a great indication for what can happen in the future, the drop-off is, with Turner, I didn't think Turner was a terrible, terrible goalkeeper, but he wasn't one that suited Arsenal at all, because he just did not have the level to play, with his feet that the modern goalkeepers are required to have, especially one that's going to play under Mikel Arteta. But the defence and everything, there was no drop-off there, was there really? If anything, some people said that it was there was the improved. They felt it was improved compared to when Ramsdale's in there. I still think got to see a bit more of that to judge that for myself. But in terms of who I think is going to start tomorrow, I do think he's going to start Ramsdale, James, because I think he'll go with the people that got him there. And I think Raya would accept and understand that.
I think he's going to get games anyway, though.
Yes,
I think,
of course.
I'm certain, Ramsdale could start this game, and I think he should start this game, because I'm in total agreement with you. Look, he got us there. No one will be more buzzing than him to play this game. I think he really deserves it, and I think he'll have a great performance for what it's worth. But then you could see Raya start, at the weekend, for example, and then he could also play a later Champions League game. Fingers crossed, we've got the group tied up, and he could be playing.
There you go. Yeah, exactly.
One of those games. So I think. I don't like that people are reading into this so much. I saw an insane quote earlier today from Shaka Hislop, of all people, saying that he really, really, quite passionately didn't like what we're doing by having 2 goalkeepers. And, I think I mentioned it before that I think one of them will inevitably go because, one of them is just going to want to play week in, week out. Even if they split the games 50-50, that's still probably not going to be enough games for both of them. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. But for the here and now, whilst they both seem to be happy, we've got 2 genuine world-class keepers at the club, if you want to go that far. But I do think Ramsdale is teetering on that. And I do think David Raya is arguably, already there. So very, very exciting. Do you think it's, not that I want to stay on the topic for too long, but do you think it's as big of an issue has been made out in the media? Because we've seen these links already that Chelsea and Bayern Munich are now sniffing around Aaron Ramsdale. It's been a day.
Yeah, but if that does happen, James, I don't have a problem with that from the point of view of that this is a guy that's just signed a new 4 or 5 year, I think it was a 4-year contract. He was voted by his peers as the PFA goalkeeper of the season, even though Alisson and what have you had the more clean sheets. The pros within the league said that Ramsdale was the best keeper they faced. So if he is to go, it's not like the old days. You can command up to a £75 million fee for this guy, I believe. He's not going to be sold for chump change. We're going to get serious money for him if he does decide to go. So that softens the blow a bit, because I personally would like to see both of them stay. But I don't believe that's going to happen. And obviously, I think Ramsdale's going to be the one that does go. But I think I said it at the weekend, James. I don't know if you watched the game on, there's various ways to watch games now. I don't know if you watch the Sky coverage or if you mute them at half time and listen to the radio like some others, or you just don't listen to them at all and you just put the commentary on when it comes back on. Very, very lazy analysis going on of Arsenal at the moment, because like I've said before, Arsenal fans nibble at things. We do take bait and we nibble, and that bumps up engagement for all these channels and these people and what have you. And I've got no problem with Shaka Hislop. I actually quite like him on ESPN FC. He's one of the few that I like on there. But for me, what is the problem with having as many great players at your disposal as possible? Is it just because they're goalkeepers? That's a problem, because all I ever hear, James, about Real Madrid is how brilliant it is that they've got Tchouaméni, Camavinga, Bellingham, Kroos and Modric all at the same time. So why is it that Real Madrid with 5 brilliant midfielders are seen as fantastic, but Arsenal, just because they've got 2 great goalkeepers, this is insulting, or that he's upset Ramsdale. Ramsdale's dad has been on other podcasts saying that his son relishes this challenge and wants this challenge. So I'd rather hear it from the horse's mouth than the horse's rear end about what's going on there. I just think it's lazy. I think it's something that they're just, any kind of, and again, Arteta does like his experiments, and sometimes they go well, sometimes they don't. But it's happened with Pep as well. But I don't know. I just find it lazy, James. I find it really, really. It's just something that they just seem to cling on to take a cheap dig at Arsenal because we've got 2 good goalkeepers.
Yeah,
What's the problem with that? Other teams have had. If Ederson, sorry, if we didn't have who we had in goal, and Liverpool didn't have Alisson, the sub goalkeeper, is it Bravo at Man City?
Bravo. God, how many years are you going back?
Well, who was the one that played against us in the Community Shield?
Ortega,
that's it.
Claudio Bravo.
Sorry, mate.
Him out.
Ortega would be a number 1 for any other club in the league apart from us, City and Liverpool, because he's fantastic. And yet, it's not a problem for Man City to have 2 good goalkeepers, but if Arsenal have 2 good goalkeepers.
Yeah, and he's not a young guy either, Ortega. I mean, he's, for a goalkeeper, he's at the absolute peak of his powers. So, to have someone like him on the bench, really good buy by City, actually, because he came from, I think, a slightly lower league team. Not that I'm going to start praising City, but, good bit of business there. But then you only need to look at Brighton as well, who have been rotating their keeper quite a bit this season, because it's Arsenal, that there has to be a talking point. It's the same thing with regards to the lazy analysis that you mentioned, with regards to the corners, like that the way they picked that out. I mean, for God's sake, I mean, that benefits the opposition more than it benefits us, if you're going to look at it that way.
I thought Walcott was fantastic with them. I mean, he's not. I don't think he's going to be our, staunch defender of everything. I don't think he's going to be delusional in that everything Arsenal does is great. But I agreed with him when he said, Arsenal aren't in control of the time. They haven't got the watch. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. It was ridiculous. It was ridiculous. And Robert there is Ortega is better than Onana. I'll have it. Yeah, he is.
At the minute, I wouldn't be arguing with that.
No.
Anyway, goalkeeping debate aside, because I think this is something we could talk about all evening long and have its own separate podcast on. I think the defense is where we're obviously the most limited in terms of the changes we can make. Because we've only got 6 players really to pick from, and even our standing right back in Thomas Partey isn't available at the minute. So what changes would you be making to our back 4, if any? Right,
James, this is really difficult because I'm with you. I don't think that we can. However, there is a lot of people. I'm not necessarily firmly in that camp, but there's a lot that feel that Ben White is not very good when he has to play. He's not a 2-game-a-week player.
Oh, nonsense. No.
Well,
If there's
well,
anyone I'd be keeping in, it's Ben White.
well, that's it for me as well, especially after that game at the weekend. And I know that Trossard obviously got it from Arsenal's Twitter account, and Declan Rice got it from Sky. But Zinchenko, for me, I gave Zinchenko my man of the match. I thought Zinchenko was fantastic, so I wouldn't be dropping him either. I wouldn't bring in Kivior in for Gabriel or Saliba. So I think the defence, you've got to keep it as it is, and then if you want to save someone towards the end, be that Ben White or be that Zinchenko, you're lucky there that you've got Tomiyasu that can play left or right. Or if you just want to do it and have someone on the left, you've got Kivior that can play on the left-hand side or as a centre-back if you wish. So you've got options, but I don't think that we should be, needing them until like the end if you want to preserve some legs with the 5 subs. I wouldn't be changing that back 4 at all, mate.
So there's one change that I would make, which I think you can be pretty okay with. I don't think it's going to disrupt the flow of things too much, or at least I hope it wouldn't. Initially, I did want to see Kivior starting in place of Zinchenko, and the more I thought about that, I think it's going to be too disruptive, because then you've essentially got a back line of 4 centre halves, and I don't think that's going to be dynamic enough for the way we want to play. But the one change I think we can make and get away with potentially is Tomiyasu coming in for Saliba. And I know that's not going to be everyone's cup of tea, but for me, given the way Saliba was running to the ground last season, and given that he had that injury, I would be erring on the side of caution with him. And I think Tomiyasu has started the season really well, to be honest. I know he's not really started games, but when he's come off the bench, I just think he's looked fantastic. And you've only got to look at his performance for Japan against Germany, where he was outrageously good. So I think if you're going to make a change, it would be Tomiyasu coming in for Saliba, and you either play him as the right centre-back, or you do that classic back 4 we had a couple of seasons ago, where you bring in Ben White back at centre-half, Tomiyasu at right-back. I've got no issues with that. I think that's going to be a fine back 4. Do you think that could work?
Oh yeah, of course, but I can't see him dropping Saliba, and I can't see Saliba going first ever chance at Champions League, and you're putting me on the bench. I can't see that happening at all, mate.
Do you think this is the sort of game where, depending on the game state, obviously he would potentially look to bring people off around the 60-minute mark? Because I'm just thinking we've got that North London derby coming in. Someone like Zinchenko. I mean, Yamara's put it in the chat here. Do you think he can go full 90 again? I mean, he's coming back from an injury as well. He's the one that I'm really worried about.
Yeah. I mean, if you look at it, I believe that Zinchenko was fit for the Spurs game last season, but he started Tomiyasu, didn't he? Because he was like, he's better 1v1 against Kulusevski and Son, depending on which one they put out wide. So he could start Zinchenko tomorrow and put Tomiyasu from the start, either, like you said, at fullback for that game, because I do still believe, as much as Tomiyasu's been slightly critiqued, and I think he's grown, especially that Palace game, he grew into it and everything else. I thought he was brilliant when he came on against Man United. I do believe he is still one of our best 1v1 defenders at the club, and he's one of them that actually enjoys the art of defending. So yeah, I think that Zinchenko might start tomorrow, but then he won't. Zinchenko's injury record is very, very bad, so I think he might preserve him for the derby and go for the better defender for that one.
Yeah, and you've got to remember, I mean, I don't think we need to make too many wholesale changes, because, okay, we are having a lot of games in quite a quick succession, but we are still very early on into the season. And I do think in that game against Brentford in the Carabao Cup, I don't think you're going to see an entirely rotated team, but I think that's where you rest someone like Zinchenko. And if we can get through tomorrow and he can get through Spurs, that's your time to rest him.
We're saying all this, James. You're not giving Cedric a game. He's in the squad for the Champions League.
I mean, are you?
No.
You having him on the bench tomorrow at all?
James, I wouldn't trust Cedric to carry the prime in the little things, mate. That's.
Well, I know we're jumping the gun a little bit, but we have got that game next week against Brentford. Do you think?
Yeah, he's probably going to play that.
You think he'll play it?
I think he'll probably play in that. I would rather see Rail Waters play. He's either a full, but a left back option. But I could see him potentially playing either a Ben White or Tommy Asu as a right back, and then Cedric as a left one. Yeah.
Well, let's not entertain the thought of Cedric playing anytime soon. But look, he is still part of the club. If he starts at any point this season, got to get behind him. But I've not got an issue with Cedric. It's just I have an issue with us being in a position where we need him, which I really hope does not happen at any point this season. So fingers and toes crossed for that.
Yeah.
But JJ, let's move a little bit further up the pitch. I want to see the same midfield that started at Goodison Park. I thought it was really good. I really liked Fabio Vieira's performance. I want him to continue building on what has been a really good start to the season from his point of view. Declan Rice, no debates there, has to start this game. Martin Odegaard starts this game. So it's really only between Fabio Vieira and Kai Havertz for that left 8 role. However, going to throw something at you. A certain Mr. Jorginho has gone under the radar quite a lot this season. And I'm not saying this to be rude, I do sometimes forget we've actually got him because Declan Rice seems to have just taken over, and the thought of Jorginho coming and playing and starting games for Arsenal just isn't something that's even crossing my mind at a minute. But I was thinking about this the other day. I do wonder if you could perhaps play a system, and I don't think this will happen, but if you had Jorginho at the base, doing what he does best, and then you had Declan Rice playing in that left 8 role with Odegaard on the right. Now, for me, I want to see Declan Rice evolve into that left 8 position anyway. I think that's where he's going to play his best football for us. I think he's got all the attributes to play that role. I don't think Jorginho is the right player necessary to be at the base of that trio. But against PSV at home, I do think it's a viable option. Like I said, I don't think it's the option Arteta will go with. But Jorginho is a quality player. Shouldn't forget that. And this is a game that I think he'll be, anticipating he could be in contention of starting. What are your thoughts on that, mate? Do you think Jorginho could get a game?
Yeah, from what you've said, I mean, I don't think that a lot of fans will appreciate what they would say is quote unquote 2 sort of number 6s at home in our first Champions League game. I think they'd want us to be a bit more front foot and go for it. But I think if you look at it like we were talking about earlier, the goals that they've been scoring and the way that they've been pumping teams, I wouldn't necessarily be mad at having a bit more defensive, solidarity with a Jorginho in there. Bit more, he's an extra leader as well. Let's not forget he's one of the more mature players in the squad. So yeah, I wouldn't begrudge that happening. But I think you're right, mate. I think he's going to go for Fabio, and Fabio deserves it. He unfortunately got an assist chalked off at the weekend. I know that it's the law per se, but yeah, I think it was very unfortunate that got ruled out offside, and he was robbed of a brilliant assist for Martinelli at the weekend. He hasn't set a foot wrong. For me, when his momentum's this high, I would keep him going, because he seemed last season like he was a confidence kind of person, and then coming in and out and starting against what really were big physical teams, and he hadn't really settled it. I think he's a lot more confident in himself now compared to what he was before. So I wouldn't hook him out, because I'm like, well, no, once you're giving us these 7 8s out of 10s a game, why disrupt that? Keep him in. But you got to think as well, he wants to build the confidence up of Kai. He wants to keep Kai Havertz's confidence up as well. I mean, he was only inches away from being a hero in that Man United game, wasn't he? The chance that he fluffed, and then if he scores that,
wins the penalty.
If he gets the goal and assist in the game, it's a completely different debate about Kai Havertz at the moment. So, yeah, it's very tricky. I wouldn't like to be Arteta down there tomorrow, James. He's got a lot to think about. But that's what he gets the money for. That's what
Well, I really hope that we're in a position where we're able to bring Havertz into the game with ample time left to play, because I'm like you. I think Vieira has to start. You have to play the guy that's in form, and he may well be in with a shout of starting the North London derby. Which, if you'd have told me that a couple of months ago that we'd be starting Fabio Vieira in the North London derby, I'd have laughed you out of the building. With all due respect, he just didn't seem ready physically. He didn't seem ready. But what I was really encouraged by in the game at Goodison Park was he was able to cope with the physical battle. And given that he can now do that, his technical ability is allowed to come through. So, yeah, I'm really excited about what he can do this season. And, if you're putting a gun to my head now, and the options are Vieira or Havertz on Sunday, I'm picking Vieira. It's a no-brainer. But that's why I think this game tomorrow night is important, and why I think we need to see a good bit of Kai Havertz for about half an hour at least. Because if he's coming on against tired PSV legs, there's going to be opportunities for him. Whether he's coming on as a left day or even in the striking role, he's definitely going to have opportunities to get himself something, whether it be a goal, whether it be an assist, an important pass. So I think this is an important game for him, even if I don't think he's going to start it. Another player that a lot of people are talking about, who I'd be amazed if he starts this game, but I think should get some minutes off the bench. Emil Smith-Rowe hasn't played a single minute of football this season. I think he's definitely going to start against Brentford next week. But again, this is another opportunity like Kai Havertz. If there's half an hour left on the clock and we are in a position where we can bring him on, you have to, don't you? Because it's just getting ridiculous now to the point where he's just going to end up playing no football if it goes on like this.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I believe he was the natural successor for that left 8 role once Xhaka left James. But with Martinelli now getting the injury, he said, he felt his hamstring and he's out tomorrow, but he could be back for Sunday. I don't think he's going to be in for Sunday, Martinelli, James. I think he's going to be out for a couple of weeks, especially if it's hamstring. I can see him being out for a long time. So that does present opportunities, I feel, to Smith-Rowe. Maybe not for starts until the Brentford game, but there's definitely chances for him to get minutes off the bench, because I feel Trossard's definitely going to start in that left position. But if not, then you've got Smith-Rowe that can go out there. I still feel, with push come to shove and Arteta had to make the sub for that position, I think, like what you said to me the other day that you wanted, I think he'd pick Nelson above him now. I think Nelson's even in the pecking order above Smith-Rowe at the moment.
Well, he is. I mean,
it does say a lot, because obviously Nelson is one that, again, people still, the jury's out on him. Like me, I think that he's better actually on the right-hand side than the left-hand side. I'm one of the few that think he's better off the right. But I could still see Arteta picking Nelson over Smith-Rowe first in terms of subs.
Well, let's hope that Smith-Rowe gets an opportunity in that left 8 role, because I think that's where the minutes are there to be had. Even if, let's say the Brentford game rolls around and we want to give Ødegaard a rest, you could potentially play him in that right 8. So I think there's opportunities there for him. I just hope whenever he does play, he grasps the nettle, because he did get opportunities last season. He just never really did that well in any of them, if we're being quite honest. They weren't opportunities where he had an opportunity to make a name for himself. Not that he has to do that, but it would have been nice for him to have had a bit more impetus in the game. So I'm hoping he
and
really...
I feel sorry for him, James, because
me too.
The tournament in the summer, you look at it, I thought that Anthony Gordon was a terrible signing so far for Newcastle. But since that tournament in the summer and since he's come back, got to give him his props, mate. He's been fantastic for Newcastle. And then Gibbs White's been good for Nottingham Forest for a long time, but he had a fantastic tournament and he's still doing bits for Nottingham Forest. And Smith-Rowe is sat there. I haven't had a game, let alone...
He hasn't had a minute, mate.
Yeah, there you go. That's it.
So tomorrow night, hopefully, we see some Smith-Rowe ball from our number 10. But that brings me on to the final third of the pitch, the attack. I'm going to start with a question from Yamara G. What would you think of an Nketiah, Jesus and Saka combo?
Well, Saka's one of them where if you even put gloves on him and said he's got to play and goal, I think he'd perform. So he could go on the left-hand side if Jesus is going to go on the right. I said the other week, didn't I? I would like to see Jesus and Nketiah together. I think Jesus feeding Nketiah could be quite promising. I think he's quite underrated in terms of his ability to link and set things up. So yeah, I wouldn't begrudge that at all. But I don't think that's happening. I think he's going to put. Hey, I think Jesus is starting this one tomorrow, mate. 100%.
What would your front three be?
Be Jesus up top, Saka on the right, obviously, and Trossard on the left.
So you're basically going for the front three that you reckon will start on Sunday as well?
I think he might start Eddie in the derby. Yeah.
That's a very bold call.
I know. Well, I thought that the weekend he was going to let Jesus play that one because he was going to let Eddie play this one, and then he was going to put Jesus, but he might flip it and do it the other way now. Because there's no way if Eddie doesn't start this one, he hasn't promised him he's going to start the next one.
I don't know. I think Jesus. I think we're at a point now where we've kind of managed his injury quite well, and if we can get him 60 minutes tomorrow night, I feel like for the derby you've got to play your best players. And as much as I love Eddie and Nketiah, it's got to be Big Gabby for me. It's got to be.
I know, but Mikel.
Mikel.
He adores him. James.
What's he like? Well, look, let's not jump the gun and start talking about the Spurs game because we've got another preview show coming out on Thursday night where we're going to be joined by Amanda, believe it or not. So, goodness me, the times they are a-changing, as the kids say.
It's one of them. If I believe Jesus is going to start this one, if he goes and scores 2 or 3, James, he can't drop him for the weekend, surely, after getting a hat-trick, No. So it's you got to base it on what we're going to see and what's going to happen.
So one player we've only really touched on who I think is well within a shout of starting this game is Reiss Nelson. I'd really like to see him start. And I think with the injury to Gabby Martinelli, he's going to get a few more minutes. If Martinelli's back by the weekend, which, like you, I think is wishful thinking, then maybe that won't be the case. But I think for this game, I would be inclined to keep Trossard wrapped up in cotton wool for the derby. And I'd really like to see Nelson get a game because we signed him up to his new contract. I don't want him to be another player that is on the periphery because that's what he has been for so long at Arsenal. I mean, he made his debut under Arsene Wenger, which is crazy. And he's still a young guy and he needs to play football. This is the perfect game for him, in my opinion. He played in the Eredivisie. He should be used to playing this type of opposition. And my front three would be Nelson on the left, Jesus through the middle, and Saka on the right-hand side. I think that is mature and experienced enough to win this game, but it just seems to be ideal for someone like Reiss Nelson to come in for. I think he could be really dangerous in this one. And I can't emphasize it enough. He needs to play. Like Smith Rowe, we signed him up to a deal. We never should have signed him up to it if he's not going to get minutes. And so far this season, he's had a few splatterings here and there. He came on against Manchester United, did well to win the ball, which led to the Fabio Vieira pass. But he needs to play a substantial amount of time. And I want to see him, right from the off in this game, especially for a Hale End kid that, has been at the club for so long, had a few difficult spells, gone through a hell of a lot during his time at Arsenal. To finally be here on the world elite stage, surely this would be the ideal game for him, mate.
Yeah, I think, as per James, you're making fantastic points. It's just Trossard's so good, though, isn't he? He's fantastic. He's both-footed. He's arguably one of the best finishers. And like we said, we want to make a dent in this group. His end product is still so much better than Nelson's. And I can't see, again, Mikel dropping Trossard. I think if Martinelli was fit, obviously he's starting. They're going to play all 3, but yeah, he's definitely. I think Trossard's playing this one, mate.
Would you rest? I mean, I wouldn't, and I think you wouldn't as well. So I think it's a bit of a pointless question. But would you rest Bukayo Saka?
I would love to rest Bukayo Saka, James. But again, like I said about Ramsdale earlier, if there is one kid, this guy single-handedly carried the club. He deserves to hear that music and have his little, Champions League badges on his sleeves.
Interesting question here from Phil Macker. Is Arteta keeping Nelson and Smith Rowe for the English quota? I think that's a bit of an extreme take, but
I don't think he needs to, does he? He's got a lot of them that are even foreign that make homegrown quota. I think Martinelli's got homegrown quota status now.
Saliba has as well. So.
Yeah, Raya got it.
So we should be okay in that department. No. So just before we wrap up on the selected teams, from top to bottom, what's yours?
So I'm going to go Ramsdale, White, Saliba, Gabriel, Zinchenko, Rice, Odegaard. I'm going to stick with Vieira. And then I'm going to go with Trossard, Jesus, and Saka.
Lovely stuff. And I'm going to go very similar. I'm going to go Ramsdale in goal, Ben White at right back, a centre back. Well, actually, no. That's where I'm going to stop it there. Tomiyasu at right back, Ben White and Gabriel as the centre halves, Zinchenko at left back, midfield three, same as the weekend. Vieira, Erdegaard, Declan Rice at the base, and then a front three of Nelson, Jesus, and Bukayo Saka. I think that's got enough sensible rotation in it and enough quality to win
You
this
never
game.
know, mate. You could go for it and go for the whole Howell End front three. He could do Eddie, Nelson, and Saka. He could really back the.
That'd be nice, though, wouldn't it?
Because I mean, it would be lovely. It'd be a nice moment for them all. Yeah,
it would. Yeah, and also I think it's good enough. Like, I don't think I look at that front three. I'm like, oh, that's Europa League. I actually think that is a good enough front three. Whether they work together as a three, I'm not so sure. But I love the idea of it. It'd be great to see. Anyway, I think that pretty much brings us to the end of this podcast. So before we go, mate, what's your score prediction for the game?
I am going to be the same as I was against Everton, even though I got it wrong. But I'm going to go for a 2-0 Arsenal win. Even though they are spanking teams by goals, I'm going to back us to keep a clean sheet.
2-0 and a clean sheet at the Emirates. You are a very, very brave man.
With Ramsdale in goal as well.
Okay, with Ramsdale in goal, I'm going to agree with Phil Macker. I'm going to go 3-0 to the Arsenal. Reece Nelson 2, Gabriel Jesus 1. I'm telling you, it's coming.
Have you put? Not that I, advocate gambling. It's very bad for you. But yeah,
Before you finish your sentence, the answer is no.
Oh, you're not going to put a cheeky £5 down on it.
No, I've already had a couple of bets this season, and
I think if you went for a 3-0 with 2 Nelson goals, you are looking at least a 200+ return.
Well, it depends how much you have on it, mate. I'd be
that could be a solid 75 or something to 1. That could be.
It could. Well, don't get me tempted on the odds, mate, because I did also have Arsenal to win 0 against Fulham, and we all know how that went. So I'm never betting on an Arsenal game again, because every time I seem to, it goes straight down the toilet. So yeah, I'm not going to advocate gambling. Good luck to you if you do it.
It is bad for you.
It is bad. Yeah. It is. But I tell you what's not bad: Champions League theme tune on repeat. Which is how I'm going to be spending the rest of my evening. So, JJ, thank you very much for coming on, mate. Make sure you follow JJ on Twitter. His Twitter handle is right there. Make sure you subscribe to the James Johnston YouTube channel as well. We will be back Thursday evening, time TBC, probably sometime between 7 and 9 o'clock. We'll be joined by Amanda as well, and we will be taking a look back at tomorrow's night game against PSV, and also a look ahead to the game against Tottenham on Sunday. So, lots to look forward to. JJ, thank you for coming on, mate.
Much obliged. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you to myself as well. So, thank you to everyone that's got in touch in the chat room. Apologies that we've not had time for any questions. Been a long old day, but we're going to have some welcome relief tomorrow night, hopefully with a big Arsenal win. So, from myself and JJ, thank you for tuning in. And as always, up the Arsenal. See you later, guys. Bye-bye.